Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is about becoming whole. Now, I get a lot of people who reach out to me with the anxieties and the stresses, the hurt and the discomfort that living this life brings up. Now, as you know, you have already caught on that I talk a lot about circle and the idea of circleness, and how sometimes it is not the main idea or shape or way of being in some cultures. Circle teaches us that all parts of ourself are welcome. We've seen many people take on circleness in their own way. It is not just indigenous to First Nations. The Knights of the Round Table would be an example of circleness, a society that was being built on circleness, on including everyone at the table and giving everyone at the table an opportunity to speak, to be heard. So when I think of becoming whole, I think of circle. What is the shape of becoming whole? How do I become whole? And this is what I get asked a lot of times. Now, if we look at the Merriam Dictionary and how it defines whole, it says that it is a complete amount. It is something totally lacking. No part, member, or element is missing. It goes on to define this adjective as a coherent system or organization of parts fitting or working together as one. So, here we are with this idea of never or not lacking, of all elements being together, of fitting perfectly and working. So the definition of wholeness is unity, or something that I like to say, cohesiveness. And when I think of parts, I'm sure you've heard me refer to the three breaths, the three intelligence, the intelligence of our body, our mind, and our essence. And those are usually the three quote-unquote parts I speak to when speaking about cohesiveness and wholeness. What I find, though, is that many people have never sat down to speak to their mind alone, or to acknowledge their body, or to acknowledge their essence. They've never sat with them in circleness, learning from these parts. And the reason is that we live with defense mechanisms. And one of those defense mechanisms, because we do not like feeling dissonance, we avoid discomfort and conflict. What we do is we compartmentalize. This is how we manage trauma, grief, and also expectations. And so here, the way that I look or envision compartmentalization is compartments. And many times I think those compartments, when I ask people to describe them, are little boxes. Boxes have the energy of square. Square is very different from the energy of circle. No one is greater than the other. They just present different ways of holding things or bringing things together. If you look at how modernity or westernization has been built and what energy it brings, just look at the suburbs. You don't see a lot of round houses, do you? I once lived in a round house for about 4 years. I loved it. Every time I walked around, felt I was in prayer, always speaking to the directions and always coming back to myself. It was a beautiful experience that just the walking around of my space provided me that footprint or blueprint of circleness, of unity. So if we take that example and you walk around your square or rectangular house, how does that energy feel? What gets stuck in the corners? What gets hidden in the corners? And that shows you the difference, just one of many, of the difference between approaching ourselves, approaching our practices with a different mindset, not one where we check boxes, but where we sit around the circle with ourselves. That means circleness will bring in and has space for grief, trauma, and anxiety. The other difference here, as we've been talking about the difference between wholeness, where everything fits together, nothing is missing, and compartmentalization, it means you separate. So if you are looking for wholeness and you compartmentalize, that is the bridge or conversation that is the most important in realizing that the energy of how you are moving in life, the energy of how you are checking boxes and making notes and making progress as you chart your life, chart your day with square calendars, living a linear life, leaving all of your parts behind. I'm not saying to go out there and not be safe. Many times we can't show all of our parts in situations or in places or with people. But what if we started playing with these words of how we act or react? And instead of compartmentalize, what if we started maybe using the word boundaries? And maybe these boundaries are circular. And maybe you can start seeing how when people cross your boundaries, you can, in that moment, be completely whole in asking to be. How is that different from reacting and compartmentalizing? It means that wherever you are, you have the opportunity to be whole in and of yourself, to have your mind, your body, and your essence present, all working and speaking to each other. And then you make the decision between all of them how to be. What ends up happening with compartmentalization is that you leave your body, your mind, or your essence behind. Therefore, there is no way of being whole and present with all of your parts if they're all in different boxes that you have put away. I'm not saying that this is easy. We all have experienced grief, trauma, deception, jealousy, anger, hatred, and it's not fun feeling or being in those spaces. And usually, Western society in its attempt to being nice means that you have to compartmentalize instead of being authentic. It is the authenticity that I see people craving, the authenticity to be themselves. And much of the work of finding those parts of ourselves is by accepting that we have hidden them first. Now, I'm not asking you to go into your chest of boxes and re-traumatize yourself. I'm not asking that whatsoever. What I am naming is that if you are functioning in one way of how to deal and create your reality, yet you are craving the other, it's not going to work. Something has to change. A square will never be a circle. A circle will never be a square. Again, one isn't better than the other. It's just an invitation to consider a different way of being. Let me give you a small example. A small way to start practicing being present. And see how I don't say mindful, because you're calling out only one of your parts. So as we learn to define and redefine, I like to play with words. And yes, I love puns as jokes. I've always loved them. I've always loved playing with words and the opportunity that they give us, and they allow themselves to have several definitions, not just one. It's all in the way that you see things. So getting back to this idea of wholeness, and how do we achieve wholeness, and a small example. So I'm sure everyone has had this experience. I think it's pretty global. I've tried to pick something pretty mundane, I guess you could say. But let's say you wake up in the morning and you are preparing your coffee, or you go out and you are ordering it. Are you just going through the motions? And if you're just going through the motions, what part of you is participating in that? Is it your mind, your body, and your motion? So take a moment to just remember your coffee, your tea, your breakfast this morning. Looking at our routines allows us to explore things that we do every day that we feel comfortable doing, that at one point we made a decision, gave us an opportunity to be safe or to do or to get what we want. And so by exploring a safe place like that, we can start asking questions. Where's my body? Where's my mind? Where's my essence when I'm ordering coffee? How much of you is participating? Are you whole? And if you are not whole, then what are you missing? Now, instead of using mindfulness, I'd like to use the word observation. I speak a lot about curiosity, and curiosity means observation. So go back again to your daily morning routine. That gets you started. That beverage, that gets you going. And the reason that I want to relate to beverage is because most beverages that we are speaking of have water, and water is life. Even juices have water in them. So what I find curious is that when we wake up in the morning, we automatically look to connect to a form of life, which is water. Water is life. Because we want to feel whole in that moment. And what are we feeding? As you observe, are you observing the water and giving thanks? As you observe, is your mind wandering? Not that the mind wandering is bad at all. Just observe it. What is your body doing? Is it tired? Is it anxious? Should you be really drinking that coffee if you're anxious? And then most people, I'm sure, are questioning, why am I going to even get my essence involved here? Well, because it is one of your intelligences. It is something that is participating at all times, whether you're conscious of it or not. To become whole is all parts in place. Nothing is missing. To compartmentalize is to divide. So even your daily routine of connecting to life is an opportunity to feed all parts of yourself, to listen to all parts of yourself. And what do we put usually that water, tea, juice, or beverage in? A cup, a container. A container is usually circular. At some subconscious level, back in our mind, when we are in a place where we're looking for routine that feels safe, we go to circle to bring wholeness. You're probably never going to think of your coffee or tea in the morning the same ever again. I know my students don't. I know I don't. Because every time I have that tea that I'm sometimes dragging in the morning, I recognize the circle. I recognize it as an invitation to bring all of my parts, my body, my mind, my essence, all my feelings, all my emotions, all my expectations of myself in that moment of the day, of everything running through my head, of the aches and pains of my body that are speaking to me, my essence who's already praying in one direction or another. And it's an opportunity to check in with the team, to have a moment of regrouping as we all sit around this circle of this cup that has in it a form of life. If you are looking for wholeness, then wholeness doesn't just come from recognizing yourself and your parts and who you are in every moment, but it's also not just in observing, but welcoming in the elements of the day, the different kingdoms around you. And when I'm speaking of kingdoms, I'm speaking about the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, right? The insect kingdom, all of those things. I could go through even more, but for today, we'll just keep it simple. So now if we add this to our example of our morning wake up, our routine, the next step towards wholeness is bringing in that water into the circle. You're putting it in the cup anyways. So are you welcoming water? Are you asking? Are you being grateful? Are you considering that when you open up your tap and you have water, there are millions of people around the world that do not have clean running water? When you add fire to heat up this water, are you thinking fire? Some people have to still go out and collect wood and put on a fire. Are you considering also how that coffee got to you, whether even you're ordering it, then you can include your barista and everyone who took your order. But I'm also talking about the plants. You're welcoming the plant people. Coffee, tea is the plant people. Plants teach us about community. So all of a sudden we have water that brings us life, fire that brings us nurturing, and we usually sit around a fire to learn from each other. And now we have the plant people. Now again, for all you people who are like, wait a minute, I just drink juice, that comes from a tree. So it's still there. So now all of a sudden, here you are in your morning routine, bringing in these beings, these elements, these representatives, and communing with them, whether consciously or unconsciously. And today, as we seek wholeness, we are consciously pausing to engage, knowing that we are not alone. We are not the end. Therefore, the things around us that nurture us, that sometimes we take for granted, and taking for granted is you don't recognize their value. And many times that value has been lost because you never had to go get water from a stream. You never had to build a fire in the morning. You never had to pick your own food. It was brought to you. So our value changes. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying, can we consciously be aware? And one of the reasons that this production line became so fast for you to be able to reach your goal is because the value was time. Here we are talking again about time. Remember, those routines that you have are your conversation or your way to be present with you. It's your time. That's what a habit is. It's your time. Whether you are consciously acting in that habit or not. So today, what we are welcoming in is this potential to be whole in things where we are already valuing ourselves, our time, ourselves, what we do, things that nurture us, our habits. And it's easier to look at something that you're already doing than to dream of something that you've never done before. This gives us a smaller leap because if our habits are to compartmentalize, maybe one day, we can break or be conscious of that habit of compartmentalization. And slowly, as we learn more about how to be whole, we can invite that. So, for today's meditation on wholeness, we are going to take a moment to bring in the example that we've been using and put it forward, put it to mind. We're going to bring it into our circle. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take our 3 breaths together as we call our different parts, not leaving any of our parts behind, not compartmentalizing. So even just taking these 3 breaths consciously, calling these parts to participate, that is the first step in wholeness. So let us do so now. So as you sit in a comfortable space, take a moment to just settle in first. And if you are one who is comfortable closing your eyes, do so now. If you're one who just likes holding a soft gaze, do so now. If you need to lay down, and you can, and do so now. And remember, you can always come back to these meditations at any time and find your comfort space. So since we're speaking about wholeness, and wholeness not just being about our parts, we're going to start this meditation a little bit differently. Now that you're feeling comfortable and settled, I just want you to breathe easily. And as you breathe, I want you to start noticing, observing the sounds outside of your space. Now, if you are outdoors, then the sounds far away. And just take them in with an easy breath, just observing. Now, start observing the sounds closer to you, or for those in a room inside the room. We are just acknowledging everything outside of us, knowing it is part of the greater circle. And now observe your breath. And listen to it as it rises and it falls naturally. And you'll get to that point where you yawn or sigh. And you settle in. Next, we will take 3 intentional breaths in and out through the nose, beginning now. That first breath, calling our mind into this time, into this space. In and out through the nose, calling our body into this time, into this space. In and out through the nose, calling our essence to this time, into this space. And as you do, I want you to imagine a little circle or a big circle around your heart space. And one by one, invite your body, your mind, and your essence to sit around this circle. And as you do so, let us also invite the element of water in the east, fire in the south, wind in the west, and earth in the north. And as we invite earth, we humbly turn to Mother Earth, asking her for the root that we need to hold us in this space right now, to help us in this journey of becoming whole. Now, just by inviting all of these things to this circle, we are taking a huge step. We are walking or leaping outside of our boxes. And so today I ask you to welcome a memory or something that you're dealing with, or if you feel just comfortable with your morning routine, that is available. Again, this is not to traumatize you. This is just an opportunity to shift habits. And the only way we can shift habits is to observe the habits or the ways of being that we have. In no way are we demonizing them or saying that compartmentalization is wrong. They have gotten you here. And so right now, think these defense mechanisms that you have for keeping you safe. We have them to protect ourselves, so thank them. Thank all of these compartments that have held your grief, your trauma, and also the expectations. Expectations of your family, of living in a consumeristic society, of Western colonialism. And just thank them for getting you here. And maybe today is an opportunity to open up one of those boxes, but you don't have to. So for those who are welcoming your morning routine, welcome it into the circle. And let it take its place around the circle. And now you ask, one by one, your body, your mind, your essence, about this routine or experience or this memory. Where was the mind when you were making coffee this morning or ordering it? What was it thinking about? Was it excited? Was it focused? Bring your mind into this moment, this memory. What about your body? Does your body remember what was going on? Did it automatically know how to put on the kettle or make the coffee or stir in the Splenda that you like? Did it just go on autopilot? Was one of those autopilots a craving? Again, we're just observing. And at any point where the mind and the body together, acting together in this space, in this morning ritual. And now we bring the essence in and ask the same question. Where was the essence in this morning ritual? Or was it just floating around, doing its own thing? Keep breathing, keep believing. That's it. Keep breathing, keep believing. Anything is possible. Keep breathing, keep believing. Right now, the possibility is just to be able to look at ourselves. If we want wholeness, that means all of our parts, all of our experiences, all that we are must be invited so that no member or element is missing. So we are a cohesive system of all of our memories, our experiences, our grief, our disbelief, our expectations, others' expectations, our comfort, our discomfort, all of our emotions, as well as the everyday thing of being in a human body. And so for this moment, as we meditate on wholeness and compartmentalization, how whole can you be in this moment now? How whole can you be in this practice now? How whole can you be? As we remember, as we invite. And just observe, no judgments. We are all different each moment of every day because we are evolving. So for now, we think wholeness, we think compartmentalization, we think habits, we think memory. We think our body, our mind, our essence, we think the elements, we think this practice, we thank Mother Earth for holding us. So that today we might step closer to wholeness. So with gratitude and thanks, we go around the circle again, releasing the memory, giving thanks to the elements, to the directions of the east, the south, the west, and the north. For all of your guides, for you yourself, in all of your parts, consciously attentive in one way or another here in this meditation. And so we take 3 breaths in and out through the nose, thanking our essence for being in this time, in this space. In and out through the nose, thanking our body for being in this time, this space. And as you're thanking them, then just imagine them, just walk them out of that circle, one by one. That essence, that body, and now that mind as we thank it. And they can go back to where they're normally feel comfortable. Let's do that last breath again, thanking our mind for being in this time, in this place. As we do, let's focus again on our breath, the rise and its fall. And now let's listen to the sounds inside of the room or close by. And then the sounds outside of the room or sounds far away. With deep gratitude to all the teachers and all the traditions woven into this practice. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's rub our hands together. Sealing this practice, this meditation in our mind, our body, and our essence. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you. Thank you so much as we continue exploring topics, as we practice our 3 breaths, and as we find small steps in small ways, as we decolonize the mind, the body, and the essence, as we pull them out of those compartments, and we introduce a different way of being, well, all parts of yourself are welcome. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you, hear you again soon. This is Marita, one who catches lightning with the path of Ish. Shade. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.